We're gonna be talking about this morning the 8th commandment, which is thou shalt not steal. So Jesus said, to sum up the law at the beginning, when Jesus was talking and they said, how would you sum up the law? He said, it's to love God and to love your neighbor, right? And so the first 4 commandments are about loving God. And then the last 6 commandments are about what it looks like to love your neighbor. But don't take them out of context. Remember, the first 4 precede the last 6, love God and love your neighbor. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, it's hard to convince our society, which is a godless society, about loving God. But what is something that is easy to talk to your neighbor? If you were to go home and knock on their door and say, hey, you know what sounds like a good idea? We shouldn't steal from each other. They would say, yes, that sounds good. We agree with that, whether they are a believer or not. If you live in America, this is a value, to not steal. In a survey taken by a group of researchers called the Barna Group, they did this survey. They found that 86% of adults in America claim that they completely satisfied God's command to abstain from stealing. 86%. So if you're in the 14%, welcome to your sermon, all right? But before the rest of you just check out, not so fast, not so fast. There's something interesting here to talk about, right? Why can we all agree that stealing is bad? Why, whether you're a Christian or not, why do we all hate stealing, the idea of it? Well, think about your culture, the culture that you live in. Think about the water that you are swimming in. Our culture loves and values deeply money and working hard. Let me just throw a few quotes up on the screen. These are some of the saints of the American culture. We have Elon Musk, work like fire. I mean, you just have to put in 80 to 100 hour work weeks every week. This improves the odds of success. Thank you, Elon. Barack Obama, if you're willing to work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to get ahead. And Oprah Winfrey, the big secret in life is that there is no big secret. Whatever your goal, you can get there if you're willing to work. It is a culture that is built around these mantras, these sayings that hates and loathes stealing. If someone takes what you have worked so hard for, it is devastating and crushing. If America had commandments, there would be 3. Thou shalt work hard, right? Thou shalt make lots of money, and thou shalt not steal. Another reason why we hate stealing is not just because it's ingrained in our culture to work hard, but it's also exposing. It's so interesting if you talk to people who have had their homes robbed or their cars taken or stolen or their stuff rummaged through. It's very rare that they're like, yeah, I'm sad I'm missing this item or this was stolen from me. But most of the time they talk about how they feel exposed and vulnerable. If any of you have been robbed, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone has invaded your property, invaded your space, has seen you, has gone through your clothes and your drawers and thrown them all over the place, and you feel taken advantage of, exposed, vulnerable. And the other reason why we hate stealing is because it's very costly. Stealing has a negative impact on our bank accounts. One, just from getting stolen, but did you know that every business in America that produces a product has a stealing, addition, 15% that they add to all of their products for being stolen? They account for that their product's gonna be stolen. So they increase the price 15%. So if we would just stop stealing, we would get a break, 15% off. It's maybe inflation isn't a real problem here. It's maybe our theft. One thing that it seems, though, to be true for the Christian and the non-Christian, between God and humanity, is we hate stealing. That's something we have in common with God. God, too, values working hard. God, in the beginning, created all things in 6 days. He values the idea of work. It's important to him. And also, God, too, values the material things. Why? He made it. He created it. It's important to him. This planet, this place, the stuff you have, it's important to him. And he says it's good in Genesis 1. The things that he made is good. And yes, God, too, also knows that stealing is costly. He shares that with you. Because in the garden, what happened? Satan stole his children, Adam and Eve. But it goes a little deeper for God than us. The reason why it goes deeper for God than us, because God owns everything. That when you steal, you're not just stealing from your neighbor. You're stealing from the Lord. Let me read to you a few verses. Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. Deuteronomy 10:14, behold, to the Lord your God belong heaven and heaven of heavens, the earth with all that is in it. In Colossians 1:16, for by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. All things were created through him and for him. So when you die, you take nothing with you. All this stuff belongs to God, and that will never change. While you're on this earth, you are called to steward what is his, to take care of it. But it is never fully yours. Yours for a time, but never fully yours. Someone else is going to own your home and live in your home. And someone else is going to own your car and drive your car. And someone else is going to take your inheritance, your retirement account, and spend all your money. It is what it is. But all of it belongs to the Lord. One thing I want you to consider, if you're not a believer here this morning, I'm so glad you're here. You're so brave to come here and to listen from someone like me, a Christian, and I'm thankful that you're here. But I do want to ask you this question: why do you hate stealing? Like for you, where does that come from? What moral code are you abiding by? Why do you care about stealing? I would argue from Genesis 1 for the Christian, and just hear my argument out, is I believe that every single one of us, including you, are made in God's image, made with his nature, like made in his image and his likeness. And so inside of you, in your heart, just like he hates stealing, so do you. So when we come to the 8th commandment, it says don't steal, you're like, yeah, duh. So do you. You share that in common. I would argue that's the case. I would love to hear, I'm serious, if you want to meet me afterwards and let's get a cup of coffee and let's talk about it. I would love to hear why and what is the code that you're abiding by. Why do you hate stealing? So listen, this morning there's 3 questions I want to ask and I want to answer. So are you ready? Sermon outline. The first question is this: what is stealing? The second question is, what does it look like to not steal? And the third question is, why should we not steal? So that's the first question. What is stealing? That's what we're going to talk about first. And listen, a group of English and Scottish theologians, they got together in Parliament in the 17th century, and they wrote this thing called the Westminster Confession of Faith, where they sifted through the entire Bible. And they looked for parts of the Bible that talked about the 8th commandment, stealing. And they put them all together, they looked them over, and then they tried to summarize it. And so I'm going to read to you their summary. It's exhaustive, okay? But as I read this to you, I want you to pay attention to the areas of this confession that hits your heart. What stands out to you? It's far more than just don't steal, don't rob someone. It's far more than don't steal, don't take a car. It's far more than that. And you'll see that here. The Bible has far more to say about it. Listen, what are the sins forbidden in the 8th commandment? The sins forbidden in the 8th commandment, besides the neglect of the duties required, are what? Theft, robbery, man-stealing, and receiving anything that is stolen, fraudulent dealings, talking about business endeavors, false weights and measures, removing landmarks, injustice, unfaithfulness in contracts between man and man, or in matters of trust, oppression, extortion, usury, bribery, vexation, lawsuits. America loves lawsuits. Unjust enclosures and depopulations, engrossing commodities to enhance the price, unlawful callings, and all other unjust or sinful ways of taking or withholding from your neighbor what belongs to him, or of enriching yourselves, covetousness, inordinate prizing, and affecting worldly goods, distrustful and distracting cares and studies in getting, keeping, and using them, envying at the prosperity of others, as likewise idleness, prodigality, wasteful gaming, and all other ways whereby we do unduly prejudice our own outward estate, and defrauding ourselves of the due use and comfort of that estate which God hath given us. Wow, an exhaustive list. What do you resonate with? What is the Holy Spirit pressing on your heart as it is shared? As these divines went through the entire scripture and they came to these stories in these parts of the Bible and they said, this is what we see where stealing looks like. Disobedience of the 8th commandment. When I was 16 years old, I got a car and I got a job. And then I worked, my first job was at the Holy of Holies outside of the church, Chick-fil-A. I was a good Christian teenager. So there's this coupon, I don't know if you know this, Chick-fil-A, every time, I think it's like 1 out of 10, when you get a receipt, it prints off a survey, and if you fill out that survey, you get a free chicken sandwich. You guys know about this. If you don't start paying attention to your receipts, don't throw them away. So as the cash register, I would run it, and people would order food, and I would see their receipt come up with the survey, in which I would hand them their receipt, and then I would hit print, and sure enough, 10 more receipts would show up with surveys that I would put in my pocket and then fill out and get free chicken sandwiches. It was a genius scheme for free food. I went to my youth pastor. I was so proud. I was legitimately proud about this. I went to him and I said, listen, my youth pastor, I have figured out the game, how to get free food. I mean, as a teenager, that's better than money, better than gold. And so here I am telling him, disclosing to him, you know what he says to me, to my dismay? He says, you're stealing. You're a thief. What? I work at Chick-fil-A. What are you talking about? You may have never robbed a house, but have you ever printed an extra Chick-fil-A coupon? In college, I had this roommate. He would receive copious amounts of mail. And part of the mail that he would receive were these medical bills and debt collectors. And I would grab his section of mail and go to him, and I would place it in front of him and say, here's your mail. And he would quickly stand up, grab the stack of papers, and stomp over to the trash can, dump them in, and then say this, my dad said I don't have to pay these. As if he was just forgiven of all his debts. My dad said I don't have to pay these, throw them away. And the only reason why I thought about this story was because this week, a medical office called me and said that I owed them money. And all I could hear in the back of my head was, I don't have to pay that. And then I sit down to prepare this sermon in Exodus 20:15. I hear God say, you have to pay that. Don't steal, you thief. I met a person once who was running a business. I consulted him about business advice and about taxes. I was complaining to him about how much taxes I have to pay, in which he told me about his story of paying taxes. He's like, at first when I started my business, I would pay a ton of taxes. And it frustrated me. So then I got myself an accountant. I was like, that's good, get an accountant. He's like, yeah. But then when I got the accountant, I found out that I wasn't paying enough taxes, so now I back owed taxes, and then I owed more taxes. I said, well, what did you do? He said, I fired him. I was like, okay. And he said, I hired another one, and he made sure I didn't have to pay any taxes. God says, do not steal. Listen, I'm gonna put up on the screen some statistics. 10 times the cost of, do you know what 10 times the cost of street crime is? It's stolen from American businesses. By who? Who is stealing from American businesses? You are, the employees. How? Lying about hours, making personal long-distance phone calls, doing other work that's not affiliated with that work on the clock, taking supplies from the company, stealing the goods from the company, the product, and the abuse of expense accounts, right there. 10 times the cost of street crime. You think crime, the problem in America is street crime? Maybe not so. $20 billion a year. Do you know how much is stolen? $20 billion a year is stolen in unpaid taxes because people lie on their income. They underreport their income. Then there's $40 billion a year stolen by the American people, workers of big companies, and $350 billion a year is stolen in dishonest sick days. You guys have been sick a lot. Like a lot. You know what is really costing Americans is not the guy stealing Amazon packages at your front door, but it's people like you and people like me. So it appears that stat, 86% of us think we fulfill this commandment. We're wrong. We have stolen. And I think our stealing is rooted in two conditions of the heart that I want to talk about. Think about this. One condition being the lazy heart. And I'm going to go through a few things about the lazy heart, that leads to our stealing. We want that get rich fast, right? We love the get rich fast method. So this is the lazy heart, the heart behind stealing. And these aren't exhaustive. These are just the ones that came to my mind as I was preparing. But one, I just want to talk to the students. School's about to start back up. I want to talk to you. Cheating in school is one of them. I talk to a lot of students, and I have not met one student who hasn't copied another student's homework, who hasn't used ChatGPT to cheat, or online resources to cheat, and who hasn't also at least once cheated on a test. Do you know you're stealing Do you know you're stealing someone else's grain? You might be thinking, well, everyone does it. Okay, God says be different. Everyone does it, everyone's doing it. God says be different. Don't steal. You're stealing someone else's hard work. When you look at your report card, let it be known that what you see is not your grade, but it's someone else's. It's your friends. When I was in middle school, I went to a Christian school, and we would have these memory verse tests every Monday. So they would give us a memory verse to memorize over the weekend, show up Monday morning. First thing we do our memory verse tests. One weekend, I chose to not study. I show up, I try to cram it, I can't cram it, I freak out. So I take the Bible, open it up to the passage, place it at my feet so my teacher couldn't see, and I get a piece of paper out and I cheat on the memory verse test. Then I turn it in. And then I look back and I see my friend with his mouth open all the way to the floor. And he says, I can't believe you just used the Bible to cheat. Thief, you've stolen. And plagiarism is another one, taking credit for someone else's ideas as if they're your own. I hope you guys do not listen to Tim Keller sermons. Don't listen to him because it's tempting when you listen to his sermons as pastors to just take word for word what he says. You know, he's a very popular preacher, and so there's always all kinds of things like that. One of the reasons why I can't listen to him is because if I were, I'd be like, I want to take this sermon and just give it to you guys. But this happens all the time with content creators. People who create content, they're copying over and over again other people. Even in big corporations, just this week, Lululemon is suing Costco. The reason why Lululemon is suing Costco is because Costco took their most expensive pants, which are $128, and they took them to a manufacturer and said, we want to make these pants, and for cheap. And so literally, stitch for stitch, they have made these pants. They're called like Kirkland, like business pants, and they're $30. So some of you guys are like, I'm going to Costco today to get some pants. Plagiarism though, copying, stealing. The other is milking the clock. One of my friends shares a story about when he was working one summer, he decided to work in the construction industry. And so the first day of work, he shows up, he's got his lunchbox, he's got his water cooler, he's got his truck, he's got his boots, he's got his clothes nicely, neatly together, and he's ready to go. And he works from sunup to sundown. The next day, there's a group of men who are working in the construction field, and they stop him right at his car and say, listen, kid, we work this job every day. You're making us look bad. We need you to stop. What's happening? What's happening? We need you to slow it down. What's happening? Milking the clock. It's stealing. There's this trend happening between Gen Zs and millennial workers. It's called quiet quitting. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's happening. It's people that are employees of companies, and it's usually salaried employees. And what they're deciding to do is just do the bare minimum that they can get away with. They're not doing extra team meetings. They're not doing the extra work of helping their teammates out. They don't go above and beyond. When they clock in at 9, they're done at 5. They take long lunch breaks. They take whatever they can get away with their employer. They take advantage constantly, as much as they can, without getting fired. They try to be as lazy as possible and still get paid. It's stealing. And here's another one. This one I didn't really want to talk about, and that's when I knew I needed to talk about it, because I love fantasy football, and football season's about to start. Gambling. Listen, I don't know if you know this, approximately 20% of Americans have placed a sports bet in the past year. In 2024, Americans legally wagered approximately, this is $147.9 billion on sports. And that's just the sports betting world. That's just that. Pastor and theologian Leon Duncan says this: gambling hurts ourselves if we lose. It hurts our neighbors if we win. The money that one makes in gambling at its worst, at its very worst, is off the back of someone losing. And it's a game that seems fun, that makes stealing feel fun. But it takes advantage, especially advantage of the poor. Now, think about this. I'm not saying your fantasy football team is wicked and evil, but just think about when you're gambling, when you're placing a bet on a game. Just consider and pause. Where's your heart in this situation? Are you looking for a get-rich-quick method? Are you seeing like you have debt and maybe you want to try to double your bet in a few hours? Just consider, where's your heart in that moment? What's the posture of it? Is it coming from a position of laziness? Or is it truly just the way that you connect with your friends from college or your friends from high school in a way to get together and build community and such. But just consider. Start wrestling with it. It's something that's growing in our country, growing in our pews. So just think about it, wrestle with it. I hope if you want to talk more about it, I would love to talk with you more. I can't go into full detail about everything, but I would love to talk with you. And the second condition of the heart is the greedy heart. Listen, cutting corners. I mean, this is something we say all the time about cutting corners, and it's awful. It's essentially cutting corners and putting the expense on the customer. They end up paying the price for it. In the 1970s, there was Ford created the Ford Pinto. I don't know if you heard about this, but it's a common case study in business schools. And the idea is this: they were at the end of production of manufacturing this car. And they came to the awful discovery that they had put the fuel tank in the back of the car in a place that if there was a fender bender, a rear end accident, that the car was likely to explode, which meant people were gonna die and people were gonna get injured. So they looked and analyzed how much would it cost to fix each car. It was $11 to fix the car, per car. But then they sat down with their accountants and their money people, and they ran a cost-benefit analysis. And they came to the conclusion that it was cheaper to actually let the car go to market to the customer. It was cheaper to handle the lawsuits from death and injury than to actually fix the car for $11 a piece. They made a business decision. They put the car out knowing very well that they were putting a vehicle out, fully knowing that people were going to die and people were going to be injured. Stealing. Cutting corners. The other thing is unfair wages. Think about this. Listen, if you own a business and you're running a business, you have employees. This is a great thought to have. If you are hiring a person and you think, what is the least I can pay them for their work? What is the least that I can pay them to increase our profit? Instead, think like this. What is a fair way, based on what we can afford, to pay a person that blesses them for what they do for us? If you are constantly thinking about what the minimum is, maybe consider this. Maybe you're stealing. Maybe you're being greedy. Bless the world around you. Bless your people that are working for you. Don't be a thief. Don't take advantage of their work. The other one is hoarding money. You're like, how can hoarding money be stealing? Listen, it is stealing because the reason why you have money, which I said at the beginning, is because all is God's. You're a steward of it. It's been given to you. Your gifts and talents that produce this money, it's God-given. So invest in the things that matter. Invest in your neighbors, in your community. Invest in the kingdom. Invest in the church. Jesus tells the story. You guys remember this parable about the master and his servants with the tenants, this coin, this money. He gives them some coin, and two of them, they go and invest it and bring back to the master when he returns more than what he had given them, and they're blessed by the master. But then one takes it and hides it in the dirt and doesn't put it back into the community, doesn't invest it, and comes back and says, here's your coin. And the master rebukes him and says, what are you doing? Some of you guys have huge amounts of savings. What are you doing? You're not taking it with you. You have neighbors. There's lost people. There's people that need help. There's a community that's desperate. What are you doing? Don't hoard it. Don't steal it. God gave it to you for a reason. He chose you to have this money for a reason. The other one is robbing God. You're like, how are we robbing God? Well, the prophet Malachi in chapter 3, verses 8 through 9 says, will man rob God? He asks that question. Will you rob God? And then he says, yet you are robbing God. But you say, how have we robbed God? In your tithes and contributions. You are cursed with a curse, for you're robbing me, the whole nation, of you. Listen, you gotta remember this. All things belong to Jesus, to God. Everything belongs to him, and he commands us. He commands us to live off the 90 and give what? The tithe, the 10%. But then he invites us to give offerings above and beyond, to go beyond our means and to say, you know what, it's all God's anyways, and I've been blessed with more, so here's more. And yet how many of us only give at the end of the year, when we have margin in our bank accounts? How many of us wait till the end of the month, not trusting that God's gonna provide for us to have margin in our bank accounts? Lincoln Duncan, is pastor theologian I mentioned earlier, he did a sermon where he tells a story about a lady who found in her freezer, at the bottom of her freezer, this crusty turkey, frozen, freeze-dried, essentially. It's 23 years old, 23-year-old turkey. So she calls the turkey company and says, hey, I'm just wondering, can you eat this turkey? And they said, well, you can, but it will taste like cardboard. In which She said, that's good to know. We will give it to the church. Leftovers. Is that how you treat giving to God? Your tithe and offering? So listen, what's the condition of your heart? Is it a condition of laziness? Or is it a condition of greed? And what does it look like to not steal? The second point, thou shalt not steal. What does it look like to not steal? Paul says in Ephesians 4:28, what it looks like to not steal looks like this. Let the thief, he says, don't steal. Stop it. Commandment, right? He's quoting the commandments. But rather, let him do what? Labor, doing honest work with his hands, so that he may have something to do what? To share with anyone in need. So we're seeing two things here. We're seeing work hard and give back. And so the first thing I want to say is joyfully work hard. I want to say joyfully work hard is good medicine for a person who is lazy. If you are struggling as a lazy person in your heart, work hard. It's good medicine. It's good medicine. So listen, are you, as you struggle, are you taking advantage of your employer? Do you take a little extra time on your lunch breaks? Are you sneaking product for yourself? Are you working with a bad attitude or giving the bare minimum? And are you justifying that? What are your sneaky ways of justifying that behavior? Are you copying content and taking credit for it? Are you gambling with your money, trying to get quick riches? Paul says, stop it. Work hard. Give all that you can for the glory of God. And we see people like this all the time. If you were to walk into the doors of our church during office hours, you would meet this lady named Miss Kathy. And you would see someone who is working hard, but not just working hard, but with joy. You would be moved and be led to praise God more because you have met her at the reception desk, because she loves the Lord and she's working hard with joy. If you were to be around this property a few years ago, there would be this man named Gene Parrish who would take care of our property. I mean, this is hard work. I mean, he has every right to be bitter and grumpy about all of us leaving stuff all over this campus, running over his flower beds with our cars, parking in that lot and doing donuts, whatever we do, you know what I mean, after church. And it's with joy. He has so much joy. I mean, a smile on his face from ear to ear. And then think about this guy. His name's Brian Jaskowski. He works on our maintenance team. He has to deal with our mess after church every day. Marion Park, same thing. They do it with joy. With joy. They take care of us. They don't just work hard, but it's their joy. Joy to do so. The medicine for a greedy heart is to give, to joyfully give. So when you see a customer come in through your doors, or a sales opportunity, do you actually see a person, or do you just see dollar signs? I mean, just think about that. What do you see? Do you care about the people who work for you? Or are you just trying to pay them the least to raise your bottom line? Have you ever asked your employees, how's their life? How's their family? Where are they struggling? Where are they hurting? Have you even ever sat down with them and said, are you doing okay financially? How can I help you? Or are you too afraid to ask that question as an employer because that might mean you might need to shave off some of your bonus and give to them? I mean, I don't know. Ask. I don't know what they need. Ask them. Talk to them. Don't steal. In regards to God and his money, do you just give him leftovers of what he's given you? Or do you trust that God will provide for you and take care of you? If he's willing, what does Jesus say? If your father is willing to clothe the flowers and feed the birds of the air, what? How much more will he provide for who? His children, you. Do you believe that? Do you believe? Do you believe that in your giving of your money and putting your money to work for the kingdom, that God's gonna take care of you still? We are building, a high school in a few years. We're doing it because we're trying to get more high school students to come and hear the gospel. That would be a great thing to give money to. We're sending missionaries all the time, all over the world to preach the gospel, to unreached people groups. Great thing to give money to. If you got money, give money to that. We have churches in the villages and in West Ocala that we just planted that are early in their years as a church. They need help. Give. Why not? For the kingdom. I mean, there's so many other great things that other churches are doing in our community. So many great other ministries. Give. It doesn't have to be us, but give somewhere else. Do something with your money. Every Christmas, we all know this is true. Who's having the most fun? The givers or those who are receiving the gifts? If you've ever given gifts on Christmas Day, it is the most fun. Stop missing out. Have some fun. Give your money away. It really is a joy. It really is fun. So one of the things that I want to warn us about is this idea that if you're not working hard and if you're not giving your money away, yes, you're probably lazy, you're probably greedy, you're probably a thief, okay? got me right here. But be careful, because now you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna work hard, and now I'm gonna be generous. And by the grit of my teeth and white knuckling it, I'm going to make it happen. Not so fast. Be warned. This condition of the lazy heart and of the greedy heart requires heart surgery. It requires a new heart. If you work hard and you give generously, you can still be miserable. You can be a Pharisee. Jesus calls it whitewashed tombs. They do beautiful work, do beautiful things, but miserable on the inside, dead on the inside. You can obey the law of God, but not give him your heart. Listen, if you are angry right now, you're just sitting here just huffing and puffing about this idea of, oh, churches telling us to give money away. That's ridiculous. Okay, if that's what God says, I guess I'll give 10%. Listen, keep it. Keep it. Hold on to it. God's gonna get it anyways. He's gonna get the full 100. Go ahead and keep the 10. But what God wants from you is not your money. He wants this. He wants you. He's aiming at you. When he invites you to give your money away, when he invites you to work hard, he invites you to participate in what he's doing, his mission. It's like going to work with your father. Those were the best days as kids, right? Going to work with dad. This is what God's inviting you to go to work with him. Jesus says what? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So where is your heart? Nothing is more treasured in this country than money. So the real question is, what are you spending your money on? What does your budget say you're spending money on? Where are you putting your resources into? Matthew 6:19-20, Jesus says, stop this. Stop doing this. Stop spending your money on things that rust and get eaten by moths. Do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures where? Where? In heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. God wants your heart. And when you give him your heart, you will come to find that there's joy in working hard. There's not misery. You will come to find that there's joy in giving your money away, not misery. The only way that that is possible, though, is for you to receive a new heart, which is the third question. Why should you not steal? Why and how do we do this? Paul, before he writes Ephesians 4:28, which, remember, Ephesians 4:28 says, stop stealing, okay? Work hard, give it away. But before he says that, he says something else. He talks about grace, and it's gonna be on the screen, assuming, he says this, right before, grace precedes the command to not steal, assuming that you have heard about him, Jesus, and were taught in him, Jesus, as the truth is in Jesus, that you are a sinner and you need a new heart. So he says, now that you're in Jesus, you know the truth that you're a sinner and forgiven and given his righteousness. Then he says, take off this old self, stop stealing. This belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires. Be renewed in the spirit of your minds and to put on what? The new self, the new heart, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. One of my favorite plays that I've heard and seen is Les Mis. And in the play, there's this character named Jean Valjean. And maybe you've heard about this story, but he was in prison for 19 years, and he was serving in prison for 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread. And sure enough, he gets out, and the first thing he does, he can't find a place to stay. He has to go to the church. And the bishop lets him into the church to stay the night. And as he's sleeping in the church, he sees all this silver. He's like, it's just here for me to take. And so he takes it all and runs and leaves. And as he takes it and runs and leaves, he's caught by the police. And the police bring him back with all the silver to the bishop. And he brings it all to him. And listen, if he is convicted of stealing, he's going back to prison. So what happens here is very surprising. When the bishop says this, I gave him all that silver. He says this to the police, I gave him all that silver. In fact, I'm glad, officers, that you have brought him back to me because he forgot to take these 2 silver candlesticks. Grace, mercy precedes life change. When the police left, he says this to Jean Valjean, and this changed his life forever in the story. He says, my brother, you no longer belong to evil, but to good. You no longer belong to your old self, but to your new self. How is that possible? Well, it's because of the bishop's grace. And it's the same thing for you and I. What did Jean Valjean do to go from thief to saint? Nothing. But he encountered grace. Grace, listen, working hard, right? And giving generously is good medicine. It's good to treat the symptoms of greed and laziness. But if we want to get to the heart of the problem, if we want to get to the cure, you know what's the cure for a sinful heart? For a greedy and lazy heart? It's grace. It's Jesus. It is so powerful that it can even take thieves and redeem them. Listen, the last night that Israel, do you guys know the context of the 10 Commandments, by the way? They were slaves for 400 plus years. They've just been delivered out of slavery. And they're sitting here before God, and he gives them these commands of how you should live. They did nothing to be delivered out of slavery. So the last night that they were slaves, do you know what happens? God sent an angel of death into the land to do what? To kill the firstborn son of every family. This was the price for freedom. But God did something amazing. He told the Israelites the good news. Take a lamb, slaughter it, take its blood, paint it over the doorpost of your home, and I will pass over your house. So in faith, that's exactly what each one did. They painted the blood of the lamb over their doorposts. And the next morning, they still had their firstborn children, sons. And Pharaoh kicked them out of the land and sent them off, and they were free. Not by anything they did, but by the blood of the lamb, they were free. They were covered. They were free. Slaves, now children of God. Identity changed by the grace of God. When Jesus, this is so interesting, is hanging on a cross, who is he surrounded by? What? Thieves. Who sits here in this church this morning? Thieves. Thieves. Both of these thieves that were on the cross with Jesus had a heart of greed, had a heart of laziness. Both had lived a life fully deserving of their crucifixion. One mocked Christ, but the other said, Jesus, you're the Son of God. Confessed who he is. Said, forgive me, redeem me, and remember me. Remember me. You know what Jesus says to that thief? And in his final moments, he says, truly I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise. Whoa. Grace is that powerful, that amazing. What do you need to do to be forgiven this morning? What do you need to become God's child? You need the same thing that the Israelites needed, blood. You need to come to the cross, come to Jesus. Jesus lived a life where he joyfully worked hard to the fullest. And then he joyfully gave it all up. It says in Hebrews 12, for the joy set before him. You need to hear this. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. What was that joy set before him? It was you, thieves. It was you, the thief on the cross. The joy of saving his life was set before him, and he did it with joy. He's not grudgingly going, oh, here they are again, these sinners. Here they come to my table again to eat my body and drink my blood. Oh, my goodness, look at this mess. No, he says, come to me. Come to me if you're thirsty, if you're hungry, if you need grace, come to me. There's plenty of it. It'll never run out. Listen, how do you know this is true for you today? You're right here. We're about to take the meal. This is true. Jesus' body was broken for you. Jesus' blood was shed for you. And he is so glad you're here. And to quote the bishop, take the candlesticks. Take the candlesticks. There's more to have. Amen.